We need to take Omega and please get her off of this show. The Bad Batch Season 2, Episode 9, The Crossing, is another episode we didn't need. Now, it's a much more character-driven episode than I would even say some of the other filler episodes, so I think some people will like it for that. There are some little bits in this for some of the characters I did like, but I just don't understand the whole dynamic of the Bad Batch, how we go from episodes like last week to this week. We had the same situation with episode 3 to episode 4, where we had the crazy awesome clone episode with Crosshair and Cody, and then we went to whatever they did with the filler for like 3 weeks, and we're doing it again. We're doing it again. Now, it seems like the story from this episode will at least pick up in the next episode, so it's not just like a one and done, and then we'll never touch on it again. We will pick up from it then, but this episode is just, it's kind of weird because we kind of had like a tech central focus episode earlier, another filler one. It was the Speed Racer one or whatever, and this one is another kind of tech focused one, which I mean, it's fine. I think Tech is probably my favorite member of the Bad Batch, despite Crosshair, who's, with the Empire now. But Tech is probably my favorite member, like within the Bad Batch still, and it's always cool to see more development with him. But this episode, it literally starts off with the Bad Batch on another Sid mission, and the only difference is Echo is not there with them, so now you only have Hunter, Tech, and Wrecker, and then Omega, and that's it. The group is continuing to dwindle down into nothing. It's interesting. So the visuals on the show are always great. It's the only thing I can praise every week, basically, for the show. I don't know what planet they're on, but they're basically on a planet to go and retrieve some mineral. I forgot what it was called already, Ipsium or something, for Sid. I know, another Sid mission. While we take Omega off the show, can we take Sid too, please? I've been begging for Sid to get off the show ever since she was basically introduced. Omega's upset that Echo is gone, and that's kind of her whole premise through the whole episode is she's kind of upset about Echo leaving, and she thinks nobody else really is that upset about him leaving, and they're just saying to move on. So they get into the mines, they kind of mine some of the highly explosive mineral or stuff that they need to get for Sid. And then obviously there's this random dude or whatever person that has found the Bad Batch on this planet, this deserted looking planet with seemingly nobody on it. But of course there's going to be someone there, and this individual takes their ship with ease. I don't know what the hell happened there. I don't know how this person even managed to do this. I mean, obviously they snuck around to the ship and they weren't watching the ship closely, conveniently, and they just managed to get in the ship and steal the ship. Okay, just another plot device just to get them stuck on the planet. And then they realize they're stuck on the planet. They wander through the thing. They go through like this animal, Lion King looking thing in the trench with all the animals running and all that crap. If you watch the episode, you'll know what happens. I don't really care. They get stuck in the mine. They find another mine on the planet, and then they get stuck in it as, they lose their highly explosive material. It blows up. They get stuck in the mine. And then we basically get character development between Tech and Omega. So Tech and Omega kind of have an argument earlier when they first get stuck in the mine, and Omega's all upset about how Echo is gone, and she thinks that Tech doesn't care because Tech is very literal. He's very, very very direct about what he says, and he's just kind of focused on the mission and all that stuff. This is kind of how Tech is. And eventually, Omega ends up finding more of this mineral. She tries to mine it herself. She falls down a big hole. Tech ends up falling into the hole after her to go get her and make sure she's safe. They get stuck. They get dragged down into some waterfall, underground waterfall and pool or whatever, or lake or whatever, and then they get stuck. They contact Hunter and Wrecker. They contact them for help. They're going to eventually get down there and help them, but as they wait for help from them, they sit down. They kind of talk it out a little bit, like Tech mentions that he's just a little different. He doesn't process things like necessarily everybody else. He's a much more direct and literal person. He's more thinking about the mission and literal statistics and all that stuff. This is kind of how Tech is, and he doesn't know how to address himself when it comes to emotions and family and feelings, especially when it comes to people leaving like Crosshair and Echo. And that's kind of the whole entire thing between Omega and Tech. That's it. And then they obviously, because they got more of this material, they were able to blow a hole in the cave at the bottom there, and they were able to get out. Another great visual on the show, obviously, and they realize, well, they still have no way to get off this planet, so they're going to go wander. They see an outpost, and then once they get to the outpost, it's abandoned. Nobody's there. There's no ships there. So they contact Sid with this long-range communicator that was still there. She obviously can't really help at all because she doesn't really care about them. Conveniently, again, so now they're stuck on this planet, and we're going to wait in the next episode to see how they got the planet. And this is kind of maybe coming into play with Sid not being trustworthy and all that stuff. I don't know, but I don't like this episode. I don't like it. It's better than other filler episodes, but that's not much. That's not saying much. It's not saying much. And when you come off such a great episodes, or 2 episodes from last week, it's just like they're waiting for certain moments in the season to just give us the story that we want, rather than just then they're sprinkling in all this other little stuff that does not matter. It does not matter. You can add this storyline with the characters and the development within the main plot line of what you're trying to do, like the Crosshair Empire storyline. And we just had this whole 2-episode arc here of the clones and Senator Chuchi and Palpatine, all that, officially decommissioning the clones for the Imperial Stormtroopers and stuff. And that obviously impacts the Bad Batch and all the other clones. It impacts them directly. They're clones, and we're not making stories on that. We completely divert from that storyline every week, basically, except for significant set dates for like special episodes like last week or randomly episode 3, but that's it. We haven't had anything else too significant in this season. And Omega is literally the most frustrating character on this show. I'm not even saying she's just annoying, because she is annoying, but she legitimately gets this group of the Bad Batch into such ridiculous situations that they legitimately would not be in if she was not there. I'm just saying, she gets them in situations that they would not be in, and I'm just so tired of watching it. And yes, she is whiny, she is annoying. You hear that complaint about a lot of newer, younger characters they introduce. Ezra Bridger, Ahsoka Tano, I get that, but at least those characters, they ended up doing something with them later. Right now, we're not doing anything with her at all. She's just there to complain and to get them into situations that they should not be in. And this is not the show of the Bad Batch going around doing cool things, showing their abilities, which we see almost nothing of in this show. We don't see the Bad Batch really use their abilities all that much. Hunt used it a little bit in this one, I suppose. He sensed some of the storm and whatever that's on that planet. But they don't do that much, and we don't focus on the actual Bad Batch all that much at all, because Omega is there. And we're doing this Sid storyline still. And then they got rid of Echo. I don't know what the hell that's about. I don't know why you're getting rid of the character of Echo on the show. I'm sure we'll explain it at some point. We'll go back into it. But why don't you just have the Bad Batch alongside Echo and Rex in the rebellion, the start of a rebellion in some way? Why don't you go on that story? Why are we on some random mine in some random desert planet we've never seen before, and they are going into some other slow character filler development episode that serves almost no purpose? I am tired of it. I am very, very tired of it. This show is dragging. This is definitely not as good as season 1 was. Season 1 had some filler, but it was not this bad. Season 2 has been significantly worse with the filler episodes, and I don't know where it's going to go from here. This is episode 9. So we still have, what is it? Like half a season still, a little less than that now. We have to pick it up, okay? We have hardly seen Crosshair this season. Crosshair was seen in like one episode, literally one episode of like 20-something minutes with Cody, and then he's just gone again. We literally just had the whole significant thing with Rampart. He was just arrested and all that stuff. Like, what is the big main plot here? What are we doing on this show? And I think Disney and Lucasfilm completely underestimate the storylines and the story they can tell with animation. Just look at the Clone Wars Season 7. Look at Tales of the Jedi. This is the stuff you can do with animation in Star Wars, and instead you are telling us stories like this. Now, I'm not saying you need a bunch of Jedi and all that stuff in this show, but focus on the plot and the storyline you introduced in Season 1. Continue that. Actually build onto that. You've done it a little bit, but do it more, because you're not doing it. And I'm very, very bored with this show. Season 2 is not delivering the way I thought it would. It was a fine episode. If you like this type of stuff, it wasn't that bad, but it's definitely not what I'm looking for. And this show is just dragging on. So far, it's not even close to even getting as good as Star Wars Rebels. And I know a lot of people rag on Star Wars Rebels. Maybe you didn't like the animated style of it, whatever. I think Star Wars Rebels was actually done a lot better than this show. And that show was littered with filler too. But I am not enjoying this show right now. It's just really, really dragging on. I think The Mandalorian coming in 2 weeks is going to completely overshadow what this show is. This show is going to whimper out on season 2 if it doesn't pick up. And right now it has the looming threat of The Mandalorian season 3. That's literally the looming threat for this show. This show is going to completely go and tank if it doesn't pick up, because it's going to be competing with The Mandalorian season 3 versus Bad Batch filler episodes with Omega and crew. You need to pick up the story. You need to introduce more. Where is that whole cloning storyline at the end of season 1 where we saw Nala Se or something like that? We saw her get taken away into some facility, and that's what the Empire is going to be focusing on now. They brought her in, and that's obviously a storyline they hinted at. Where is that storyline? Where did that even go? We haven't touched on that one bit. We haven't touched on it at all. Omega was introduced as this unaltered clone, the second unaltered clone, along with Boba Fett and from Jango Fett. Okay, that's a very interesting story, and we haven't touched on it since they said that. We're doing nothing on this show right now. Nothing at all. You can watch about the 3rd episode and then the last 2, and basically get all you need right now from this show. And considering we're 9 episodes in and only 3 of the episodes have mattered, this is bad. It's really, really bad. It's not looking good for this show right now. You may disagree with that. I don't really care. This is how I feel about the show right now. Disney and Lucasfilm, they just don't seem to understand what they should be doing with Star Wars. There's so much potential for this brand, and even outside of this show, they are just missing on so much and so much great stuff they could do, and they just don't do it. And it's just so frustrating to me. So that's my thoughts on The Bad Batch, episode 9 of season 2. We're going to see more filler. I'm fully expecting it at this point. Maybe the finale with those two episodes releasing on the finale of the season 2. We'll probably get some more storyline, of course, because they have to. But outside of that, I don't even know what to expect at this point. More random Omega getting them into trouble, and I'm exhausted of it. I'll continue to review it. I think this show can give great things, as I've said. But it's a lot worse than season 1 for me so far. And see you next week.